Education is the starting point for everyone to pursue their dreams and change their destiny. However, in China, gender-based educational inequality remains a long-standing issue, especially in rural and economically disadvantaged areas. Despite the government's recent push for universal education and gender equality, traditional beliefs and economic pressures still deprive countless girls of the opportunity to receive an education. Why is girls' education often neglected? The answer lies deeply rooted in history and culture. In an agrarian society, the preference for male labor, combined with the belief in the greater economic return of males within a family, gradually formed the traditional notion that men work outside, women stay inside. This mindset persists in some families to this day. At the same time, the educational resource gap between urban and rural areas further exacerbates this inequality. Differences in school facilities, teacher quality, and educational opportunities make it even more difficult for rural girls to pursue their studies. Our research shows that girls have higher dropout rates and fewer opportunities to enter high-income industries, which directly limits their personal development and exacerbates the cycle of poverty in these regions. To change the status quo requires the efforts of the whole society, from creating fair educational policies to raising public awareness about gender equality. Every step is crucial. Let's fight for a fair future for every girl, because educational equity not only changes individuals, but also determines the prosperity and development of society. Education is universally recognized as a fundamental human right, essential for personal empowerment, social progress, and economic development. Regardless of gender, everyone has the right to equal access to education. However, despite the clear legal frameworks at both the international and domestic levels, gender-based educational inequality remains a persistent issue, especially in rural and economically underdeveloped areas of China. Article 26 of the UDHR explicitly states that everyone has the right to education, and that education should be free and accessible to all, without discrimination, including gender-based discrimination. Similarly, Article 46 of China's Constitution guarantees the right to education for all citizens, and although it does not explicitly mention gender, its provisions for equality have been interpreted to ensure equal educational opportunities for both men and women. Additionally, China's laws, such as the law on the protection of women's rights and interests, and the compulsory education law, reinforce this commitment to gender equality in education. However, legal guarantees alone are not enough. In practice, particularly in rural areas, deep-rooted cultural norms, economic constraints, and lack of educational resources continue to create significant barriers for girls. Many families still prioritize the education of boys, and girls are often kept at home to assist with domestic duties or care for younger siblings. Furthermore, gender-based violence and discrimination remain serious issues in some regions, further hindering girls' access to education. On a positive note, there have been significant efforts by the government, international organizations, and grassroots initiatives to address these challenges. Policies such as scholarships for rural girls and gender equality education campaigns have made a notable impact, especially in urban and more developed areas. International cooperation, including support from UNESCO and UN Women. As we look to the future, it is crucial that we continue our efforts to eliminate cultural biases, improve educational resources, and create safe and inclusive learning environments for all girls. Only then can we ensure that every girl, regardless of location or socioeconomic status, can fully realize her right to education and contribute to the development of society. Zhang Gaimei, an educator from Yunnan province, is dedicated to helping girls in poor areas get access to education. She witnessed how traditional gender bias and financial difficulties limited educational opportunities for girls, especially in remote rural areas. To address this issue, she founded a girls' school to provide equal educational opportunities and improve the quality of life. Despite facing challenges such as lack of funding, limited resources, and traditional beliefs, Zhang Gaimei worked tirelessly to raise funds, recruit and train teachers, and communicate with parents to gain their support. Her school not only changed the lives of many girls, but also promoted gender equality and educational fairness, becoming a model for education in China. Gender bias continues to be a challenge in China's education system, especially in rural areas. Many families still prioritize boys' education, believing it brings better economic returns, while girls are often seen as less deserving of educational investment. This deeply rooted inequality has limited opportunities for girls, especially in poor and remote areas. Despite national policies advocating gender equality, the implementation of such policies faces obstacles at the local level, where traditional gender roles and economic hardships prevail. Zhang Gaimei, a dedicated educator from Yunnan province, recognized the critical role education plays in breaking the cycle of poverty. Witnessing the struggles of girls who were often denied education due to economic and cultural barriers, she decided to take action. Zhang established the first free girls' high school in China, offering education opportunities to impoverished girls who would otherwise have no access to schooling. Her goal was clear: to provide these girls with knowledge, self-reliance, and the ability to improve their own lives and contribute to their communities. Building the school was not easy. Zhang faced significant challenges, including a lack of funding, limited resources, and societal resistance to educating girls. She tirelessly campaigned for support, overcame skepticism from families, and worked to recruit and train dedicated teachers. Her efforts have had a profound impact. Many graduates have gone on to become professionals, changing not only their lives, but also breaking traditional perceptions of gender roles in their communities. Zhang Gaimei's work has inspired widespread recognition and raised awareness of the importance of gender equality in education. Her school not only transforms the lives of its students, but also serves as a powerful example of how education can promote fairness, equality, and long-term societal progress. In the case of girls dropping out of school from poor families in Hebei province, the influence of family background and gender factors on the educational opportunities of Chinese students is discussed. In a remote rural area of Hebei province, Shaoli, a 14-year-old girl, failed to continue her education after completing primary school. It is mainly affected by family economic difficulties and parents' traditional gender concepts. Li's parents think too much. Education for a girl is not worth paying for her tuition and living expenses. However, Li's brother continued his secondary education because his parents believed that boys would be more promising. Compulsory education law of the People's Republic of China. This law clearly stipulates that all school-age children and adolescents have the right and obligation to receive compulsory education, and no individual or unit may deprive school-age children of the opportunity to receive education. Li was only 14 years old, and her parents' actions directly violated her right to education. Law of the People's Republic of China on the protection of women's rights and interests. This law stipulates that women enjoy equal rights to education. Li's parents' differential treatment of boys and girls in education investment constitutes gender discrimination against Li's right to education and infringes on her legitimate rights and interests. The final verdict, with the intervention of the local education department and judicial authorities, the court issued a judgment requiring Li's parents to immediately send her back to school to continue her compulsory education. The court also pointed out that Li's parents should bear the legal responsibility of guardians of the minor and should not deprive her of her right to education on the grounds of economic difficulties or gender attitudes. Li's case shows that compulsory education is a right granted by law to every school-age child, and parents have no right to deprive them, especially at the stage of compulsory education, and parents have the legal responsibility to ensure that their children complete their studies. This case reveals that in some rural areas, educational equity still faces challenges from traditional concepts, and girls are still at a disadvantage in the allocation of educational resources. But the case shows that more needs to be done, especially in remote areas where gender perceptions are strong. This case has a positive effect on the social promotion of educational equity, and reminds the society to pay attention to the protection of education opportunities for poor girls. Hello everyone. Today we are going to talk about a real case about gender equality and educational equity, and let us reflect on the right of girls in rural areas to education. The case is that of a girl surnamed Zhang, who was forced to drop out of school in Wuwei, Gansu Province. Zhang, 12, lives in a remote and poor village in Gansu Province. After graduating from primary school, Zhang's parents refused to send her to continue her education, citing economic difficulties, and it is useless for girls to study. They believe that sooner or later a girl must marry, that there is no point in investing in her education, and that the family's limited resources should be given priority to her younger brother. Zhang didn't agree with the arrangement, but her parents persisted and even made her take on the heavy housework. Zhang's dream was to continue her studies, and she was unwilling to give up, so she filed a lawsuit with the court through a legal aid agency to restore her right to attend school. In the end, the court ruled that Zhang's parents' behavior violated China's compulsory education law and the protection of minors law. First, let's see if Zhang's right to education is protected by law. Article 46 of our Constitution clearly states that all citizens have the right and duty to receive education. This is the foundation of educational equity. However, in practice, gender discrimination and the rural-urban gap often leave girls' rights neglected. Zhang's parents deprived her of the opportunity to go to school, which is clearly a violation of the basic rights granted by the Constitution. Secondly, the compulsory education law of the People's Republic of China clearly stipulates that all children, regardless of gender, region, or economic status, have the right to 9-year compulsory education. This is a compulsory legal obligation of the state, and parents, as legal guardians, must unconditionally ensure that their children complete compulsory education. Zhang's parents violated the law by depriving her of educational opportunities due to the traditional preference for sons. The court's decision is a strong vindication of this law. Look at the law on the protection of women's rights and interests. The law, specifically, emphasizes equal rights for women in education and prohibits any form of gender discrimination. In rural areas, however, gender discrimination remains high and enforcement of the law is inadequate. The trial of Zhang's case has shown us how the law protects the rights and interests of vulnerable groups, while also highlighting the shortcomings of local law enforcement in eliminating gender bias. Finally, from an international perspective, China is a signatory to the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, Article 26 of which clearly states that education is a fundamental human right and that no one should be deprived of this right on the basis of gender, race, etc. The Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women, CEDAW, requires states parties to take effective measures to ensure that women enjoy the same educational opportunities as men. In Zhang's case, her loss of educational opportunities because of gender bias clearly violates the basic spirit of these international conventions. Restoring her right to education through legal proceedings is not only an enforcement of domestic laws, but also a demonstration of China's efforts to fulfill its international commitments. This case brings us deep reflection. Why did Zhang's parents insist that she drop out of school? The root cause is the long-existing son preference concept. Such attitudes not only undermine girls' right to education, but also exacerbate gender inequality in rural areas. In times of economic hardship, girls' educational opportunities are often seen as a large investment and are the first to be sacrificed. To address gender-based educational inequality in China, strengthening policy enforcement and local government strategies is essential. Financial support, such as conditional cash transfers and scholarships, can reduce economic barriers and promote girls' education. Expanding rural education infrastructure, creating girl-friendly environments, and incorporating gender-sensitive curricula are key to closing the education gap. Public awareness campaigns and community-based interventions can challenge traditional gender roles and encourage investment in girls' education. Finally, fostering international collaboration with global organizations can provide expertise and resources to further gender equality in education. Gender-based educational inequality remains a significant challenge in rural and economically disadvantaged areas of China, where traditional gender norms, cultural biases, and socioeconomic constraints limit girls' access to education. Despite efforts by the government to promote gender equality, patriarchal values and financial pressures continue to prioritize boys' education over girls. Socioeconomic factors, such as poverty, exacerbate this issue, with girls often removed from school to support household income, or through early marriage. The rural-urban divide further compounds this inequality, with girls in rural areas facing limited access to quality education. Although China's 9-year compulsory education policy has made progress, its inconsistent implementation in rural areas continues to hinder girls' education. The study calls for targeted interventions, including increased funding, teacher training, and initiatives to change cultural perceptions of gender roles. To address these challenges, a comprehensive approach, including policy reforms, cultural change, and community support, is necessary to ensure equal educational opportunities for all girls.